So this is my primary journal. In a lot of ways, it functions like a war binder, even though that's not really what came to my mind when I started creating it. War binders are basically taken after the concept of War Room, which is a popular movie where this woman goes into like a closet, and the closet is like dedicated to her prayer journey, her relationship with Christ. And she goes in there and she prays. And I think she posts like scriptures to the wall and like all kinds of things like that. And then people started kind of doing that in a binder instead of in a room. And I've seen various definitions of it on YouTube and things and on Pinterest and things like that. So when I started reading about it, I realized that this journal actually has a lot of similarities to what people call a war binder, even though I don't think I've heard the phrase when I started it. So that's why I'm calling it a war binder, because I think people will be more familiar with that and understand what that is. But essentially, I created it just to be a journal because I like to journal and to add in some of the things that I like from bullet journaling, and some of the things I like from freeform journaling, and some of the things I liked from note taking, and I kind of put them together. So this is my journal. The first page of my journal is actually kind of an introduction. I created this page to remind myself of why I created it. I'm not really going to read into the story. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it on camera. Probably if you make it very large, I've noticed a lot of my small print is more easily readable. But it's really just why I titled it this way. It's a little bit about my childhood and what I was thinking when I created it. I gave it a start date and an end date so that I would know when I was journaling this, what time of my life I was in. And then the part that I have my hand over is my personal contact information in case it's lost and someone needs to return it to me. But of course, I don't want to put that out on the internet. So then getting into the actual content of this journal, and you'll notice that as I go through this, I'm probably going to skip some pages because some of the pages will have personal things in it, whether it's personal to me or personal to someone else. So if I skip a page, it's just because it may contain something that I don't think should be out there for the whole world to see. But it's not like, I don't know, just don't take anything from that. But essentially, I started off making a list. This is one of the things that I kind of plucked from bullet journaling, this idea of list making, and I really enjoyed it. So I started off making a list of lists, a list of things that I wanted to list, and essentially most of my lists look similar to this. Some are more artistic, and some are more straightforward, where I'm just putting out a list, and if it's something that is something that I want to make a list of later, or I want to go deeper into, then I have these page numbers that are beside it so that I can go back and see like, oh, okay, where in the journal did I write about that stuff? And then I also started doing this thing for color coordination. So all of the lists that I make follow a purple theme. It's not necessarily this shade of purple, but there's some form of purple involved in the list making process. And because this is my list of lists, this is my table of contents for the entire journal of my lists. And I put this purple washi tape so that when I look at it from the side, it's easy to find this particular page. And I did this throughout the journal as I was making different types of pages. You will see, I'm going to go to the next page that I'm going to show you. So I do these word studies, they're in green. And as I do my page numbering, I use the dots from the boxes to count down to make sure I'm always doing the same spacing for each type. And I will make like a green marking and then put the page number in it. But it shows up a little on the edge. So what happens is when I flip my notebook over, you can see pink, you can see green, you can see blue in various different locations. And it's easy for me to find, say, a word study or a Bible study or a list because I have this color key. And as you can see here, this blue strip, it's like that purple strip of washi tape that I did where I put something to help me find it. This blue thing has a list of Bible topics or Bible studies by topic, so I can easily find that. Now back to this page. This is another type of page that I include in my journal. This is for word studies. I posted one last week on the word submit. What I like to do is come up with a word and then look up the word in the Bible, find it in the New Testament where it's typically written in Greek, and in the Old Testament where it's typically written in Hebrew. And then I look up those definitions either in a dictionary. Usually if you see an English translation, I've gotten it from Merriam-Webster. And then the Hebrew and Greek translations come from, Strong's concordance, and you can look it up and figure out what it meant in the originality. And then I may look at different Bible verses that talk about it, and I might ask some questions about what this word actually means. In this case, I ended up writing a Bible verse at the bottom, and I just kind of go deeper into this word and what I think this word means. And then, so this is another type of list. As you can see, this one got a little bit more artistic on the other page, but essentially this one is on biblical passages in prophecy. So I listed out all of the biblical passages that have something to do with prophecy and decided I wanted to do Bible studies on them. And then again, like in the first time, because I'm expanding upon these topics, you will see that I put out page numbers on the side for the ones that I have completed. And then, here I started doodling some of the concepts that will be found in the end times, the signs, and, I got a little fancy, I guess, with the writing to make it pop and make it a little bit more visually appealing. And then this is what those pages start to look like. So my pink pages are actually pages that are on a particular book of the Bible. While this all fits, these particular ones fit into these passages on prophecy, that's the theme, it's actually just the book of this. So this page is on the book of Daniel chapter 12. So I created, kind of this idea of like a banner at the top and, keeping it pink and putting the Bible book and chapter up here. And then I just kind of go through and study that chapter. These actually, the structure of them kind of vary throughout the notebook. So in the beginning, I was doing this kind of who, what, when, where, how format. You can see on this page, and then also on the page that I did right before it, I did who, what, when, where, how on the side, asking myself some questions, and then going through the text, and then, some summarizing, some questions, things like that. I'll show you some of the ones that I've done more recently and in between, and you'll see that this structure doesn't exactly stay the same. I just kind of study it, and whatever I'm feeling at the time is typically how that page kind of comes out. I wanted it to have some structure, but not to be too structured that it's like regimented. And so another thing that I did, this is one of the lists where it's not just a straightforward list, it's a lot more text, but these are some of the promises of God. I wrote them out to remind myself of what God has promised us. The page on the other side that I quickly flipped from and that I'm not actually going to show you is a prayer list page. I'm not going to show it to you because it has prayers for people other than myself on it, and I don't want to put their prayer requests out to the world. But essentially, I have a 3-column structure, and I put a date for which I start praying for something or praying for someone. Then I write the actual prayer request, and then I list the date that the prayer is fulfilled. Now, some of the prayers that I list are not prayers that I actually expect to put a date for fulfillment on. Not because I think that God won't fulfill the prayer, but because I'm praying about something that I will never know the outcome of, if that makes any sense. An example is that we had someone show up to a Sabbath school class, and I don't actually know that person, but they had ran into someone, and they requested us to pray for a family that was going through something. And so we prayed for that family, and I continued to pray for that family. But I don't know that the person who brought me the prayer request, and she doesn't know the family personally that we prayed for, it was just a family she ran into at the store. So it's like I don't expect to ever fill in a date of fulfillment, even though I think God will bless that family, because I'm never going to know, if that makes any sense. But I did keep that column there because some of the prayers are things that I expect to see fulfillment of. And I want to be able to look back on that list and remember, like, I've been praying for this and God has always been faithful in answering those prayers, and to remind myself that some prayers are answered quickly, some prayers take longer to be answered. So that's kind of that type of a thing. And I think it's important in a journal like this to have some sort of list like that. So that is on that page that we're going to skip for reasons given before. Now, this page, I'm going to try to show it at one time because of what I did. I'm actually kind of proud of this page and kind of like confused as to what possessed me to do this, but I really liked how this turned out. So I put this heart in the middle, and the verse printed in this heart is 1 Corinthians chapter 13, also known as the love chapter, where it's just talking about what love is. And then on one page I have a prayer list for me to be a good wife in the future. This is kind of like your, I don't know if you've ever seen this. Most of the people I see on YouTube that are in the journaling community or in the faith community are typically people who are already married. So I am not. And it's more so like, what do I need to work on for me that I am ready to be a wife? And how do I prepare myself? What do I want to be like when the time comes? And then the other page is the prayers for my future husband, like prayers for his life now, but also prayers for what he will be when we come together or when we meet. And as you can tell, this page is a little neglected, but I thought it was a really good idea, and I do have some general concepts here, and I really liked focusing it on this verse in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, and so that's kind of how I designed it. But it made it really difficult on this side to line things up, and logistically, I'm not really sure it was the best idea. So that's one type. This is another style of page that I do that is usually in blue. I think this is the first one of these that we've come across. And this is kind of a topical study. There are actually a couple of different things that show up like this. I do my sermon notes like this. I do some devotions. This is from a devotion. Also, I have done things in this manner for Bible studies that I do with my young adult group, or Bible studies that I do personally. But basically, they're centered around a topic. So for instance, this one says, "There's nothing too hard for God." That was the title of the devotion that I was doing. It was a weekly devotion, so there were readings for the week that I added here. And then I kind of journaled about each reading, and, I just kept going until I got to the end. And then there was like an actions for the week section, and I put those in there. And so I have a lot of studies that look like. So speaking of topics, this is my table of contents page for the list of topics that I cover within the journal. I started out with this devotion called 52 Weeks of the Bible, and I listed all of the topics there. I ended up actually not liking the devotion, so I only did a few of them, and I probably will not do the rest of them, but they're here. And then I ended up with this other topics list, and as I think of topics, I continue to add them, and then I just kind of add the page numbers and keep numbering and things like that. You can see that a lot of my pages are kind of in progress and constantly updating, and you can also see, if you're looking very closely, that here I didn't continue numbering. I have some numbers written in pencil. I haven't written them in pen, and that's because at the time maybe that I didn't have that pen with me, and then usually at some point I'll go back in and fill in those things. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I can't remember which pen I used, so I have to go through all of my purple pens to figure out which pen I actually used to write this particular page, so that I don't start writing and it's in a different color. I'm gonna do a video on pens soon, to talk about that exact thing, and I have a plan to fix it in my next journal. But for this one, I've just kind of been going with it. So you'll see that as we go through that some pages are not really complete or they have pencil or something like that, and that's why. So that's that. This is where I say it's not quite a war binder because there are some things in it that have absolutely nothing to do with God. This is one of them. I mean, I guess you could argue that God created fruit and therefore this is about God's creation. But I saw this thing online and I thought it was kind of cool where people were kind of arguing. They did like a bracket challenge for different things and they kind of argued about what they thought was best until they found like the best thing. And so I did a couple of these in here where I took some random thing, like in this case fruit, and I kind of matched them up to decide what I thought was the best fruit. Now, this was not done with any sort of scientific accuracy or even full thought, because down here, I actually listed some fruits that I completely forgot about. And I made a list. They weren't even included in the original thing. I didn't actually, like, when you have a real bracket, usually they match up, you know, like, the first seed is matched with, like, the 16th seed or something like that. I didn't really order them before I put them in. I just wrote them down as I thought about them, so they don't really have any rhyme or reason or anything like that, but it was fun. And so I do have some kind of fun things in there like this where it's kind of random, but that's also some of the fun of journaling. So I do that. This is another, you know, page like this. I'm not going through everything because some of it is, of course, redundant. I'm just kind of flipping through. This is my table of contents for word studies. It has the list of words that I want to study, and of course the page numbers after I've studied that word, where I can go and check and see that. You know, I tried to do one of these. You know, this is another one of the lists where the lists are not just, you know, plain lists, but, you know, and again, it's a page that's not finished where I'm just kind of listing emotions and what triggers those emotions. And then I'm copying over some verses to read when I feel that particular emotion. I have a prayer page where, you know, I'm praying for patience and I wrote some things about it. I think I also wrote a prayer in there. And then I have, this is another one of those devotion pages where it's a thing by topic. I actually paused on this one just because I was really happy about how it came out. I was really excited. I loved how this pen, this white gel pen, wrote over this other thing. This is a Tombow dual brush and a Sakura or Sakura jelly roll to get this effect. But I really thought it was cool and I was really proud of it. These are actually the 10 Commandments. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 in Hebrew. I've been studying Hebrew, and so I was kind of excited to be able to do that. And so some of those things kind of show up, things that I'm learning outside of journaling show up in my journaling. I don't know how to explain that, but yeah. So there's that. This one is also a study, but this is from a Bible study that I did with some friends. You might have seen a picture of this particular Bible study on Instagram because I did post it. And so I do it exactly the same way as I did the devotionals, and my sermon notes end up looking like that as well. Again, word studies. I did another one of these bracket things. Not gonna lie, these stickers, when you see stickers that seem to have no rhyme or reason or are kind of off center, there's probably a mistake under there. I'm outing myself, but yes, there was a mistake. I dropped something here. I think it was food actually, and it caused kind of like a discoloration. So I put a sticker here, and there's a sticker on the other side to cover up that discoloration and make it look a little bit more normal, or I don't know, aesthetic. So I do things like that to fix my mistakes in the journal. And essentially, you know, I just keep doing that. Now, the thing I like about this journal is it helps me to get through my thoughts, and I can go back and look at some of my thoughts. I also like it because it helps me to grow my relationship with Christ, whether it's through a Bible study or a word study or, whatever um, it is. I like being able to sit down. It reminds me to take that time to spend with God, and um, it helps me organize my thoughts. Some of these were from like a small group that I did, and it really does help you. Um, I don't know, to process things, at least for me, because I'm a big note taker. And so you'll notice that majority of the pages are, note studies, either from individual chapters or it is a, full on topical study with very few lists in between. You'll see a little bit more of the word studies, but the lists are kind of few and far between. Um, and I really only needed one or two prayer request pages. This is from a sermon, so if you notice, I usually put the name of the sermon, and then I'll put like who the sermon was by, or where I found it. So this one I found on YouTube. This was actually a series, and so you'll see a lot more of those things because that's just what I focus on. But if you're doing this, you may focus on other things, and yours might be more artistic. You might focus more on big words instead of the small print notes where I'm writing down a lot of information. It's really just how you learn and how you grow that you would do this. If you follow my blog, I did a would you rather kind of thing where I thought about different would you rather questions. That is the list here. As you can see, I didn't go too far into it because I kind of ran out of would you rathers that I thought were interesting. But I also documented it in smaller form here before I actually wrote it on the blog. Some pages are this one's not finished, so I was going into, my favorite, praise and worship songs, and I actually have a sticky tab on it. It's not showing on camera, but I have a sticky tab on it to remind me to go back and finish it. This is one of the lists where I try to get a little bit more artsy, a little bit more creative, that you can really do a lot of different things with your journal, depending on what you like. Sometimes I add in images to help me depict things. And I will also add this one. I teach a youth Sabbath school. So as you can see, it says youth lesson. I don't know if that's legible in the camera, but I put those in here too. And so then when I'm teaching the youth, I use the journal to help me teach the lesson. And so that's one thing. This is probably the longest word study I did. It actually came from a video I saw on YouTube. So there was a lot of information about the word, and it went into some other things, like even beyond the word, but it was really fun to do. So this is a word study, even though it looks like sermon notes. So that was something. Let's see. This is actually a topical study I ended up doing for my blog, not for my blog, for my podcast. So all of this information ended up in the podcast. So a lot of the stuff in here, you may have heard me talking about and not seen. This is another one of my prayer pages where I'm talking about a prayer request for self-control, and then I have a Bible verse. I have some information about why I was praying for that, and just some more things about that. This is also a neglected page that I need to come back to. Ways to show your neighbor love, kind of brainstorming about things that I can do to better love my neighbor and to better show my love to my neighbor. Very important topic. I need to come back to this. So, and if you have ideas about this, please leave them in the comment section, because I think it's important that we talk about these things and that we act on these things. Side note and aside. But yeah, so I just go through and, I've been working on this particular journal for about a year. So for those who are wondering how long it takes for all this content to appear in my notebook. And so I just kind of go through things and do things. This is another one where I tried to get a little bit more artistic and make it pretty. I am not this good about freehanding circles. I used a stencil to make these circles. And yeah, I tried to draw a picture. This is probably not the best picture, but it helped me, at least in my studying. This is the most recent, these are literally the most recent pages. I did this one last night as I was studying the women of the Bible. This was a new way of doing lists that I thought was interesting. So I have a list of women from the Bible. This is not an exhaustive list. It's just a few that I found. And then I went through and read verses about each woman. And then I wrote down the traits or descriptions that I found in the verse, as well as some things that may have been like implicitly discussed in the verse. And then each time I found that trait in another person, I would count it. So I highlighted in purple the things that were discussed the most. So of the 28 women that I listed, 18 of them were said to be a wife of someone. 11 were said to be a mother. 14 of them were blessed in some way. 7 of them were extremely influential. And 6 of them were very assertive. Those were kind of the top commonalities. And I mean, again, because I was doing implicit and explicit, some of them may have implicitly been, influential. It's kind of hard. That's kind of like a opinionated thing, because it's not like the Bible said, and this person was very influential, right? So my numbers may be slightly off here. But I really just wanted to see what the Bible focused on and what the similarities and differences were about these different women and how that kind of relates to us today. And then, of course, at the bottom, I added in the verse Proverbs 31, just because you can't really talk about women in the Bible without talking about the Proverbs 31 woman. But because this wasn't a study on Proverbs 31, I didn't really go into that in depth. And then this is the last page I actually have in here. This is from a young adult Bible study that I did with my young adult group last night. Or I shouldn't say it like that because I didn't lead it. I just participated in it. And this is actually the logo for our young adult group that I just added here so that when I look at the page, I know that this is related to that. But essentially, that is what I have in my notebook. And I'm actually almost done. These are all of the pages I have left, and I anticipate filling these up probably before the month's end, maybe a little bit into January, and then starting a new journal in January. I actually have quite a few things that I plan to do a little bit differently in the next journal. And so I'll probably do an updated video when I set that one up to talk about how I want to structure it, because this one was kind of haphazard. It just kind of ended up being like a war binder, and there wasn't really a lot of thought going into it up front, other than the fact that I wanted each type of page to have a different color and that I would use the same kind of heading styles for the pages. But I will keep you guys posted and updated on how this process changes in 2021. And I hope that you guys took from it something that can help you on your own journey to Christ, something that you can find relaxing to do and, improve upon. So let me know in the comment section what you think and what you like about it, what you don't like about it, what you do, how it helps you, etc., etc. As always, if you enjoy this content, and of course, if you're looking forward to seeing how I set up the next journal, please like this video, subscribe, click the little notification bell so that you can be notified when I post more content. And, thank you for watching. Thank you for staying till the end. And I hope you have a blessed day. Bye, guys.